literally in the dark. Voxday.blogspot.com and Infogalactic. It's a quiet night here, just hanging out. You can probably hear some of the traffic and the ocean behind me. Anyhow, everybody's pretty much sleeping in the house, so I'm out here outside where I can kick back. Now, I should have brought the bear, huh? Anyhow, it was interesting. I posted today about the list of Salon's favorite conservatives. There were 25 of them. The only thing that surprised me is that there was no Eric Erickson and there was no Ben Shapiro. All those folks were, like the commenter said, they're just a bunch of never-Trumpers. They're just a lot of feckless Cuckservatives that pose absolutely no threat to the left whatsoever. None whatsoever. And so you have to ask yourself, why did they do this? Why do they suddenly want to advertise these people? Why are they encouraging people to look to these people? Yes, we know that they don't cause the left any fear, so why are they doing that? And the answer is actually in the beginning of the article. The reason is that they don't want people listening to the right-wing figures that people are starting to hear about. They don't want people to listen to, specifically, Mike Cernovich or Jack Posobiec. Why not? Why don't they want people to listen to them? And the reason is very simple. Would you shut that door, please? The reason that they don't want them to listen to people like Mike and like Jack is because they are effective and convincing, and they cause people to think about ideas and concepts that are outside the establishment limits. I understand perfectly well that there are some people on the right who are less than entirely thrilled about Mike Cernovich. There's plenty of people, just right now somebody popped up as saying that, Jack makes stuff up, whatever. But the truth is, both of those guys are very effective. And they're effective in a way that is very different than we used to see from the Jonah Goldbergs and the Rich Lowrys, and before them the P.J. O'Rourkes, the kind of people that National Review used to uphold as alternatives, as conservative alternatives, as movement conservatives, as the alternatives to the mainstream media. You don't see the effectiveness? Look at the number of Twitter followers that Mike and Jack have. Look at the way that they serve as a entry point to people like Stefan Molyneux, to people like Jordan Peterson, and to people like myself. If you notice, you don't see, that's marketing though, you're totally missing the point. See, the sad thing is, the left actually understands the way things work better than the right-wing critics of people like Mike and Jack. The reason that Mike and Jack are so... I mean, think about this. Why isn't the left attacking me? Why isn't the left attacking Stefan Molyneux? Why isn't the left attacking Jordan Peterson? You know, most people would say, most people would claim that we are, you know, from a conceptual point of view, from an ideological point of view, we are more serious, that we are more relevant, and so forth. All right? So the mainstream media is not attacking Jordan Peterson. Come on. That article on Salon didn't say, follow these people instead of Jordan Peterson. All right? So the reason is very simple. The left is not concerned at this point in time. The left is not concerned about the destination. The left is concerned about the channel. All right? There's plenty of people, you know, they don't want anybody to know about Stefan. They don't want people to read me. They don't want people to watch Jordan Peterson's videos. You know, now obviously they don't want them to pay attention to Mike or Jack either. But what's the difference? What is the fundamental difference between what Mike and Jack do and what, for example, Jordan and Stefan and I do? Mike and Jack fulfill a journalistic role. They do a lot more reporting on what is happening. All right? That's why they are, and probably always will be, that's not the right. They probably always will have a larger audience than me or than Stefan or than Jordan, right? They are, they are on top of what's happening all the time. I'm not. Stefan is better about it than I am, but Jordan is not. No, Mike and Jack are not fake news. That's ridiculous. They have both proven over and over again that they are more reliable than the mainstream news. That doesn't mean they're always 100% accurate, but given the speed of their response time, there's no way they can be. You know, I get caught off guard, and I get caught off being inaccurate, not because I say something that I know is to be false, but because I trust a source that turns out to be unreliable. And so, that's the reason that I want you guys to understand this is because Mike and Jack are very effective. And the others who come in to fill that role are going to be very significant as well, not just in themselves, but in the way they serve as a conduit to those who go deeper into the concepts, into the ideas, and so forth. Milo served that role extremely effectively for the last 2 years. I don't know whether he is going to continue to fill that role or not, because he's kind of moved on to some other interests. He's publishing books. In some ways, he's kind of moving more towards the space that the other three of us are already in. And so, but what's important to understand is that ideological purity is not only not important and not relevant, but it is, you need to understand how the whole process works. I mean, I think that Alex Jones would be more influential and would be more relevant if he would stop trying to be both aspects. He's kind of trying to be the reporter while he's also trying to explain the story. He's trying to basically be reporting and editorial at the same time. He would probably be more effective if instead of trying to do both, he's got the megaphone, the big system. If he were to point more towards the Stephans, the Jordans, and so forth, he would probably become much more significant and much more effective. But, he is who he is. We are who we are. That's not a criticism. It's just an observation. And so, no, I really don't regard Mike Enoch and Richard Spencer to be allies, because it's not just economics that they, the stuff that they do is very, very different and not very compatible. Now, I don't think that they are necessarily enemies. Not entirely. I'm perfectly content to simply leave them alone, except for the fact that they don't necessarily do that to us. But what I'd like you to consider and like you to keep in mind is why Salon would be saying, look, please stop paying attention to Cernovich. Please stop paying attention to Posobiec. Please pay attention to these other 25 people who are harmless. The whole point is, if they believe those 25 people are harmless, what is it that is so dangerous to the left about what Jack and Mike are doing? And so, exactly, what is so dangerous to them is that they are constantly promoting other people. They're constantly building up more and more voices, more and more idea makers, more and more opinion leaders who matter. There's new people coming up all the time. This Nick Fuentes is, I think he's looking like, he might turn out to be someone. You've got Ivan Throne. He's done some really good stuff. Andrew Torba, for all my differences of opinion of him, which are actually pretty limited, he's doing great stuff. I didn't listen to the debate, so I don't know anything about it. But the point is that it's not important to agree with everything that one person, what one person or another person thinks about one specific issue or another. At the end of the day, what it really comes down to is how are they dealing with the left? Are they spending most of their time trying to appeal to the left and make nice with the left, or are they spending most of their time making inroads into the left? And so, that's the thing that, and also I think that it is a huge mistake to try to judge the journalists by their ideology. Think about it. When you think about the influential journalists of the left, do you ever pay any attention whatsoever to their specific ideological position on a single issue? I don't think you do. I certainly don't. The role that they serve is dictated by the stories they choose to cover. And so it's not dictated by what their specific opinion is about something else. Now, I think it is totally appropriate for you to criticize me on those grounds. I'm an intellectual. I'm an author. I'm a political philosopher. I deal in the subject of ideas. So, if you are going to call me to account on the basis of a specific ideal that I hold, if you want to disagree with me, if you want to try to find some fault in my intellectual architecture, I think that's correct. No, I'm not doing the work of the left when it came to Gab. Gab's position was total bullshit. It is total bullshit. If they don't give it up, they will be destroyed. I can take them down myself if I want to. They don't realize that yet. I'm not going to, because I'm not interested in it. But the point is, they do not have a single leg to stand on. And also, I don't give a shit about the movement or any of that kind of stuff. If you're coming after me and my family, I'm coming after you, period. Got it? So, anyhow, it's important to remember that different people have different roles. Hold people accountable for what's appropriate to their role rather than what you would ideally like them to be in a perfect world. And that's my main point. I'm not telling you that you need to like or approve everything that Mike does. I'm not saying that you need to like or approve everything that Jack does. What I'm saying is that you need to understand and respect the importance of their position, at least as much as the left obviously does. The left is very good about identifying their enemies and trying to disqualify them, discredit them, and so forth. And so, anyhow, the point is very simple. Either you support those people, or you're going to lose. I'm not going to fulfill the role that that Cerno fulfills. Stefan isn't. I can tell you that right now. It's never going to happen. Jordan Peterson is never, ever going to be able to do what Jack Posobiec does. And so, be careful what you wish for. Be careful whom you decide to target publicly and so forth. Because there isn't necessarily replacements that are the caliber of the people that you've already got. Oh, sure, there's plenty of people who would like to be replacements. There's plenty of people who would love to have Mike Cernovich's microphone. But I can tell you right now, I work pretty damn hard. And there is absolutely no way that I could possibly do what Mike does. He is indefatigable. Is he a bit more dramatic and excitable than me? Well, so is just about everybody. So what? It's what he does. It's what he's good at. It's part of what makes him entertaining. Does Jack occasionally get a little bit crazy and fire a few duds. Sure, but he comes up with great stuff and new avenues of attack, and is pulling in lots and lots of new people, the neutrals and moderates that are suddenly opening their eyes and opening their minds, than Stefan or I could ever possibly reach. And people say all the time, well, the first few times I read Vox, I was really appalled, and I couldn't deal with it. It was too much. Well, that's right. That's how it works. And so it's really good that there are people who have the ability to talk to the other side, to appeal to the other side in such a way that a place like Salon has to beg their own people not to talk to them, not to listen to them, not to follow them on Twitter. So, anyhow, you have to remember that the scouts that's funny. Yeah, I understand that I am not necessarily an initially appealing individual. Some of my best friends would tell you the same thing. It's kind of a common theme, actually, among even some of my closest friends. The story usually begins, wow, I really hated you and thought you were a complete asshole when I met you. And now I know you are, but I really like you. So, a third book of essays. I'm not sure what you're talking... If you're talking about my columns, the collected columns, yeah, there is. We need to finish getting the interviews transcribed. I think we still have a few interviews to transcribe and so forth, and then we'll get that out. Frankly, it hasn't been a priority because we wanted to get SJW's Always Double Down out, and then I need to get a Sea of Skulls done, and the extended edition done and out. And so, and by the way, I have good news about SJW's Always Double Down. I don't know how they did it, but the audio editor and the narrator managed to, they set some time aside. They basically ripped through the book phenomenally fast, and they have already turned it in to Audible. So that means that it should be available in audio format within 2 weeks and possibly sooner. Audible can take up to 2 weeks to actually just get through the whole approval process. So, we're getting it out very fast. The paperback edition is in the works, and I expect that the paperback will also probably be out in about 2 weeks as well. So we've been pushing that hard. The one slight downside is it's going to be a very slightly different size than the previous one, which I know will irritate everybody who cares about the size of physical books, like me. But there's no way around it because we needed to be able to do the special hardcover editions for the Voxversity folks, and so we just couldn't do it in the other size. So we will be redoing. In fact, we are redoing SJW's Always Lie as well. We are not doing this in any attempt to make people buy the book again. Like I said, it was just a mistake to do it in that original size because we can't do hardcovers with it. We didn't know it at the time. Like I said, we're still trying to figure out this stuff. Yeah, slightly bigger and more chapter 5s. But anyhow, so that's good news, and I'm also very pleased at how well the book's been received. If you've read it, and you appreciated it, I'd encourage you to put a review up on Amazon. It really does make a big difference to people. I hear that all the time. And so, and if you haven't read it yet, I mean, I know every author says, oh, you should read my book. You know, I don't do that very often. You know, if you think about it, I've published like 15 or 16 books. How many of them have I told you, look, you really need to read this one? I just don't do that often. But I really do feel that you need to read SJW's Always Double Down, and I think that it is possibly even more important than SJW's Always Lie because of the insight into how SJWs converge organizations and why they do. The reason that it's so important, the reason that I think it's so necessary, is that once you read it, and if we're operating under the assumption that I'm more or less correct with regards to the reason, then you understand that there's no way to avoid it. There's nothing that you can do, you know, with good intentions, a good heart, the best will in the world. There is nothing, literally nothing you can do to prevent SJWs from attempting to infiltrate, converge, and destroy your organization. It doesn't matter if it's just a guy's night out. It doesn't matter if it's a university, if it's a church, if it's a fitness forum. Any of these things, all of these things are subject to these attacks. And the important thing to understand is it's not because they want to control the organization. It's not because they hate you. It's all because of the internal psychological drama that is taking place inside their head, and this is the way that they relieve the pressure that they feel, the pain that they feel. You know, and if you want to get deeper into that, I strongly recommend Anonymous Conservative. His books on narcissism and RK selection theory are very interesting and very insightful. And you know, as those of you who have read SJW's Always Double Down know, I relied upon them heavily in the relevant chapter. So, well, the pain, as far as I can tell, it comes from various sources. In young men, it appears to come from a combination of low social status in their elementary school days. It can and it usually has to do with the lack of or loss of a paternal figure, a father figure. And so, you know, like for example, you know, I use John Scalzi as an example a lot just because, you know, he's the one that I know and I feel like I understand fairly well. But for every boy, there comes a critical moment where a boy has to decide whether he's going to stand up and fight or whether he is going to try to talk his way out of it. And the boys who talk their way out of it, if they allow themselves, if they delude themselves into thinking that they have won a victory, they are at extreme risk of becoming gamma males and SJWs. And the reason is because they've begun to lie to themselves about reality. They've begun to lay the foundations of the delusion bubble that they're surrounded in. Because the key thing about both social justice and gamma males is that they lie relentlessly to themselves. They lie to everyone else, but the first person that they lie to is themselves. And so I mean, I think you could actually build a moderately reasonable case to argue that they are literally insane. I'm not totally sure about that, but their rejection of reality and insistence on the ability of their words to construct the reality that they prefer is something that is at least akin to madness. Well, their lies to their lies to themselves involve the idea that others are fooled, and also, they also involve the idea that they have been victorious. The example of Pajama Boy, he talked about how he'd never lost an argument. I mean, there's no way. There's absolutely no way a guy like that has never lost an argument. But, he's convinced of it. He's going around telling people that. He thinks he's intellectually formidable. So does Scalzi. Scalzi genuinely thinks that he is really good at debate. And yet, everyone who has debated him says the same thing. All the guy does is throw a few accusations, call you names, cite his bachelor's degree, and then flounce off. Declare himself the victor. I mean, it's like, there's a, I mean, you can, it's kind of funny because once you see the pattern, you can no longer ignore it. And so there's so much dishonesty and so much delusion tied up in it that it comes from a place of psychological torment. I mean, these are people who are literally living in their own hell every day. And the only way that they can escape it is to try to bring that hell to the world. So, anyhow, we've kind of gotten a little bit far from the course, but, it's just a casual evening chat anyhow. So, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for by the way, we're very close. If you haven't supported Alt Hero yet, we're very, very close to unlocking the map, and I just worked out a deal with an excellent cartographer. So I think this is going to be something that's going to be really, really cool. So if you haven't backed Alt Hero yet, I'd encourage you to at least just sign up for like the digital editions. You'll get an awful lot for just the $15. It's something that we're having a really good time working on. So anyhow, thank you again, and we will talk to you soon.